Why do this? Why run for Congress?
Well, when the election was taking place in the fall of 2016, I was at home holding my infant daughter in my arms and just watching how the whole campaign unfolded from both sides, to be honest with you, and the entire tone of the election. And then when it became 2017, the tone didn't improve and it got worse. That my family is what inspired me to actually take a step forward and run for office. And the last thing that happened was the House of Representatives vote on the health care bill in May of 2017 that I thought was the opposite of the values in our community.
What do you think, background-wise, would lead you to success in this role?
I think that my background as a career prosecutor, I've been an assistant DA in Brown County for the last 10 years, and also my experience as a military reservist in the Wisconsin Army National Guard for the last 8 years uniquely qualifies me to take on the special interests in Washington and bridge the partisan divide.
First issue you mentioned was healthcare. What is the solution and what does it take for Washington to get that right after so much contention, so much differing opinions on both sides of the political aisle on that issue?
Well, first we need to send people to Washington, D.C. that value increasing access to affordable health care and maintaining the absolute protection from discrimination for our pre-existing medical conditions for all of us. And that's the law of the land right now, and I'll be fighting to keep that the law of the land. Wisconsin Republicans are attacking that right now in the federal court system in Texas, and Wisconsin has signed on to that lawsuit. I would immediately have Wisconsin withdraw from that lawsuit, and I would have increased the number of subsidies that are being provided to middle-class families who are kind of in this gray area where they can't afford the premiums that there are right now. And then finally, I would have a long-term study in the House of Representatives and open public hearings how to actually reduce the costs of health care in this country. I don't take any corporate money from health insurance companies or pharmaceutical companies. So I think I'm uniquely qualified to take on those special interests and actually bring down the cost of healthcare in this country.
With those improvements that you mentioned and those ideas, going back a step, how important is it for you to preserve the Affordable Care Act and keep that law in place?
The law itself needs to stay in place, but there clearly is significant room for improvement in that law, and that's what I'll be working on, improving and strengthening the Affordable Care Act. But my family's benefited from the protection of people with pre-existing medical conditions because my father has Parkinson's disease, and he was able to get on my mom's health insurance plan so that they only had to pay one premium instead of two separate premiums. That was a significant benefit to my family that I want other families in this community to be able to take advantage of as well. And I'm also going to bring my experience with the healthcare system to Washington with me. That's where my policies are going to come from. We had significant medical expenses when my daughter was born, $3,000 out of pocket, even though there were no complications with the delivery. And then when we took her to the emergency room in January because she had a flu bug and she wasn't able to keep food down, it was $900 out of pocket, and the insurance company didn't cover any of it.
On another thing you mentioned, the military. Where do you think the United States military, certainly a federal responsibility, is, and where should it be a few years down the road here if elected?
Absolutely. One of the main duties of the federal government is to have the best military in the entire world. And I've served with service members who are the best people that there are in the state of Wisconsin. And I want them to be able to be compensated fairly and to have a fully funded benefits so that we get the best people serving in the military that we possibly can get.
Mm-hmm. In terms of military strength, you mentioned the biggest in the world. Do you feel that is where we need to be right now? Are we at that level?
Yes, I do think that we have a well-funded military, but the problem is that we didn't pay for our recent increase in military spending. So when you relate that to cutting corporate taxes by 40% and reducing corporate tax revenue by 40% and increasing military spending, that's why we're in this place right now where the debt is going to be exponentially increasing in the years to come.
Moving into the economy then with that, where should the federal revenue come from, or where should spending be lowered? Where do we get the balance?
I think that corporations and billionaires should be paying their fair share of taxes. I believe that we should have a tax code that works for the middle class. When the middle class is exponentially expanding and the middle class has more money in their pocket, that's when you really have an economy that's growing, because it's the middle class that buys the products and services of the corporations and billionaires, and that's how everybody achieves prosperity.
I know another issue that's been a topic of your campaign has been protecting the waterways. Can you talk about that?
Yes, water quality is a significant issue in this community. I didn't need anybody to tell me that. I've lived here my entire life and I know that. My family enjoys fishing and on the waterways of this community and all the recreational activities that we have to offer. We have drinking water issues in the Door Peninsula, particularly in Kewaunee County. It's unacceptable that you can't drink the water coming out of your kitchen tap in the 21st century in the United States. We still have issues with the Bay of Green Bay and dead zones, and if you care about the Bay of Green Bay, you have got to learn about the Back 40 mine on the Michigan side of the Menominee River. That is a sulfide mine that's a significant threat to our Bay of Green Bay. If it contaminates the Menominee River, it's going to go into the bay, and then we're going to have even worse issues in the Bay of Green Bay.
With that project essentially at full approval now, what could you as a congressman do on that?
Well, first of all, Wisconsin Republicans are basically letting Michigan drive the entire process. We should be asserting our claim on what's clearly an interstate river and be pushing back on Michigan. And if Wisconsin fails to do it, that's where the federal government should come in, and I would be pressuring the EPA to step in and do their own independent analysis of this project, because there has never been a safe sulfide mine in the history of our country that I'm aware of.
Finally, I know you've lived here your entire life, but what have you learned out on the campaign that maybe you didn't know about this area or the people here?
Yeah, just how generous people are. I mean, just going up and knocking on their doors, bringing Congress to their doorstep, which is what I'm doing today here, knocking on doors. When you go to somebody's doorstep and you talk to them, that's when you get real honesty from people and how they feel on the issues. When you're actually at their doorstep, listening to them in their homes.